And next up on Jason's Video Game Source, we got a review for 007 First Light. Uh, Unlike 99% of YouTubers, I'm not going to use you for watch time. I'm going to give you the score right up front. Stick around if you want the context as to why I gave the game the score, why I gave the score what it is. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. And I actually wanted to give it a 9.5 out of 10, but I'm not going to give it a 9.5 out of 10 because um, as I'm going to get into mostly the presentation of it. But make no mistake, this is the best Bond video game out of the 4 or 5 I ever played. I only beat like 1 or 2 Bond games, but this is the best Bond game that I ever played overall. So this came out May 27th, 2026 for all current gen systems. Is developed and published by IO Interactive and the makers of Hitman. Um, and this game has a lot of has some DNA of Hitman, has some DNA, it has some DNA of Uncharted, has some DNA of Metal Gear Solid, the more recent ones, with a lot of the gameplay mechanics and everything going on. Um, so the presentation, let's get into why I'm not gonna point off or half point off basically. There are bugs and glitches in this game, man. I played this on a PlayStation 5. Uh, to the credits, did mostly everything, and yeah, the game crashed 2 times, and it just had a few bugs and glitches, and the game froze, a couple times and stuff. So that's basically the gist of it. There's a funny little thing right there, but no, the game otherwise is phenomenal in its presentation. But yeah, it does have some technical issues. Um, it looked and ran really well, though. This footage doesn't do it justice. So basically, let's get into the story. The story of First Light. And by the way, the men in my family, we all watch Bond movies. My father watched all the Bond movies. My brother watched all the Bond movies. I watched the majority of Bond movies. No, we haven't read none of Ian Fleming's uh fiction works of spy fiction, but we have watched a lot of movies. I have personally. So as far as Bond, the culture and the presentation goes, it's all there. The music, Bond's mannerisms, I would say is more akin to Daniel Craig because he's young and kind of reckless, but that's actually serves a major story plot into the overarching story. So the story goes that we have quantum computers. There's a company called Webb Industries, headed up by Sir Nicholas Webb and his maniacal maniac son named Daniel, who actually is like, spoilers alert. There's gonna be spoilers in this review. Also, by the way, the reason why my reviews are always later than everybody else is because I buy the game on release day. I just pre-order games from Amazon and whatnot. So that's basically just a why. I don't do review copies. I don't do preview copies. I don't do none of that shit. I don't do no sponsorships. I don't do none of that shit. So I'm basically like you, and the game is in the disc tray because I am done with this shit. It's an amazing game though. So the story goes that there's a quantum computer called Thea from Greek mythology, and God, I forgot the name of Thea's brother. I forgot the name. Hyperion. Hyperion, and these are quantum computers that are manipulating MI6 basically, and MI6 agents and whatnot, and basically trying to run a coup d'etat, whatever it's called, a coup of overtaking the UK, England's government. All said and done. That's basically the gist of it, right? So it's all about spy warfare and espionage with these two quantum computers. Uh, James Bond wise, the story is it has all the quips, it has all the lines, it has all the it's a James Bond story. I'll just say that, it's for a video game, it's pretty good for a video game. How they translated the James Bond, a lot of the James Bond like movies into a video game. They did a good job. IO did a good job with that. Um, but it's not an amazing story. You kind of get you kind of see cliffhangers coming a mile away and all this stuff. If you watch James Bond movies, you'll be able to follow the story in first like pretty easily and pretty fairly. Like, oh man, he didn't die. Stuff like that. There's a lot of that in James Bond movies. Uh, so what else we got? We got the story. We got the presentation. Let's get into the gameplay. The gameplay is phenomenal. I would say that the gameplay is a mashup of, like I said earlier, it's a mashup of Hitman, Uncharted, and Metal Gear Solid. Because like in Metal Gear Solid, it's all about the gadgets and stealth and stuff. You have that and you have a decent amount of player agency within story-based missions. This is a linear game, make no mistakes. They're like smallish open maps, similar to Hitman, but not as much player agency. Where you could take out a target in Hitman like 20 different, 30, 40 different ways, right? And this, there's only a couple ways, and it's structured through, specific type of little missions. You could choose which mission you want, like to, you know, take out a target or incapacitate a target and whatnot. So there is player agency, but there's also these levels where it's basically like Uncharted, like you see in the gameplay behind me. It's basically just, you got to shoot your way out. You got to get to John Greenway, who's like uh, the MI6 mentor of James Bond and whatnot. So the gameplay, it's a mashup of walking around, eavesdropping, Assassin's Creed style, Hitman style. You're listening, you're sitting in a bench, you're playing on your phone, listening, eavesdropping on people to gain information and intel. It's a lot of espionages. You're at galas, you're at parties, you're in a tropical beach in Vietnam. It's a lot of James Bond presentation to the gameplay and the layouts, the maps, and the writing, everything. So it's very much a James Bond game. It's a straight up world hopper espionage with great action set piece sequences. Interesting bad guys. Colorful. Antagonist bad guys and stuff. A few little boss fights. The melee combat at first was in the loop, in the melee combat within the shooting and in the loop of it. I didn't really like at first because you didn't get a lot of chance besides the beginning of the game where you're doing the MI6 training with Bond. You do get this train, which is by the way a great training montage on how to do the basic elements of the gameplay mechanics: stealth, combat, going loud, going quiet, using gadgets, the Q lens, the Q watch, the missile pin. There's a lot of little gadgets in here and stuff. There's a focus where you can slow down time, Max Payne style, and shoot enemies, and get more points, headshots, and whatnot. Uh, Gameplay has some player agency, but it's not as flexible as say like a Hitman. Um, but unlike Hitman, this game actually looks beautiful, and animations are beautiful, and the cover feels good. It doesn't feel nearly or look as janky as a Hitman. It's more akin to Uncharted in the movement and the feel of the shooting and stuff. But it does take a little bit of getting used to. It does take a little bit of getting used to with the melee, which could freeform it to Batman Arkham Asylum combat system where you're parrying, dodging, hitting. You could get into a flow. Plus, you could pick up objects. You could also hit a QTE. By the way, there are QTEs in this game. You could QTE like the person smash their head against a desk or something, or pick up a pan and hit them in the head. Very James Bondish. When you're running around, as you're sprinting, you try to get to cover. You flip like right there. You flip up a gun with your feet. It's very James Bond characteristics. Because he's cool. He has he's charming. He could get his way by his silver tongue most of the times in this game. Sometimes he can't, but so like for instance, when you're doing a more quiet, espionage mission, you're walking around with a costume on, you're in a science lab, and somebody catches you in an area you're not supposed to be in a high security area. Bond could bluff his way out, or you could convince the person to let him, you know, progress through and maybe find a key or find a piece of intel that you really need and stuff. So a lot of player agency, action set piece sequences, action, cover shooting, stealth mechanics. Uh, it's a lot here, and it's ambitious, because I have never played a Bond game like this. I have never played a Bond game like this, and it's pretty ambitious. This is the best Bond game that I played. That's all I'm gonna say. It is, but yeah, it does have some technical issues. It did crash a few times, and as far as like the loop goes, like there are in between some of the missions as you travel the world with, uh, you know, sometimes you travel the world with, spoiler alert, a female spy, a mysterious true female spy. Her name is Lola, or John Greenway, the mentor. You travel the world with them in certain missions and stuff, and you try to figure out how to stop the web industries, masterminds and stuff behind it, Nicholas and Daniel. There's character wise, there's Eve Moneypenny, there's M, all the great characters. Q, Q Labs is in this. Q Labs is a big part of James Bond going back decades. You know, Q. He's the guy that does all the gadgets and stuff, the cars, the cool cars, the vehicles and stuff. There's these sequences where you go to Q Labs, you pick out your gadgets. As the game progresses, you could get 4 gadget slots. You pick different gadgets and stuff. You know, as you do different missions and whatnot. So there is a loop to this game, somewhat. You know, sometimes that loop isn't all there, but you're not always gonna be able to go to Q Lab and you know pick out your loadout and whatever. But for a linear game with all these elements and stuff, it's ambitious and they nailed it for the first part. If it wasn't for the crashes and the freezes, man, this game is a mid nine. It's a 9.5 to me, but I am not gonna give it a 9.5. It's a nine, and it's a low nine. It's not a high nine. It's a low nine. But yeah, it is the greatest Bond game that ever played. So visuals, like I said, I played it on the PlayStation 5 Pro. For the most part, look great. Ray tracing, 60 frames. This footage is not going to do it justice. Okay, it really ran well. It ray trace reflections and whatnot everywhere. Look good. I won't say it's a lock 60 frames, or maybe it's just something on my end, but it was like a little weird hitching, stuttering sometimes, or whatnot. But it's not. It wasn't like persistent. Like I remember it in the Vietnam, where there's all these people and stuff, or the dance floor at London. There was a lot of hitching and stuff. It depends, and there are a lot of action set piece sequences. Going back to gameplay, there are a lot of elements within the environment that you could like shoot and target. You run around, flip switches, or use the gadgets to like spray. To like, you can also throw your guns too when you're out of ammo. So it's not like you have one gun type of game. You do get the famous silence pistol towards the end of the game that Bond uses, but a lot of the time you're just grabbing guns. You run out of ammo real fast, and you're shooting people. Throwing a gun at them and whatnot. Lots of explosions. Lots of use a Q lens in the Q watch to see your environment, to see where your enemies are. It has a lot of that Deus Ex, and Metal Gear Solid sneaking around. You can see through walls and shit. Yeah, these are my notes. This is all the notes I got. So yeah, you spend time at MI6, you do loadouts. I made about a 221 gameplay VODs if you want to check out, a lot of gameplay in the game right now. I would say the game maybe took me 14 hours, maybe 15 hours. I'll say it's about the same length as like Uncharted 3 or something, like not Uncharted 4, that was a little longer, but like Uncharted 2. But it goes by pretty fast because the game does have a lot of action set piece sequences, car chases. It's Bond. If you watch a Bond movie, it has a lot of the elements true to form from the Bond movies, at least. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of a 10. I'm trying to think if there's something else. Feels like I'm missing stuff. But no, man, I mean, besides the presentation, the story was pretty good. The visuals were nice. Sound design pretty good. Uh, it is a solid, like to me, an evolution of the Hitman system, if you want to say that. But it is also a de-evolution system of the Hitman game because there is less player agency to work to using the maps and stuff. And this game isn't about just taking out targets though. It can be sometimes, but it's about like getting information out of somebody and not killing people. A lot of it is about trying not to kill people because Bond isn't a killer. He has a license to kill, which you do in this game, by the way. You do have a license to kill, but he's not a killer in general. So I think that's about it. So 007 First Light. If this is a type of game, if you're a Bond fan or you like games like Uncharted, Metal Gear Solid, and Hitman, it's right up your alley. If you're a Bond fan, I would just say buy it. Either buy it at a little discount. And I pray to God that IO Interactive does the next game because I'm hearing rumors that they might not even MGM, Amazon might not let them even do the next game. But otherwise, that's about it. And there's John Greenway to save the day. Make sure you check out my brother who streams almost every day, Bobby at Bobby Vegas Gaming. And make sure you check out the greatest video game platform for gamers on earth, Jason'sVideoGameSource.com. There's a new game database in there with over 100,000 different video games. The only catch is you got to make an account, and it's free. You don't have to pay money to be a member of jasonsvideogamesource.com. And if you got any questions, just reach out to me on the site or in the stream. And that's about it. You guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.